informational overview of what the diamond approach is all about. So my informational talk has the following outline. I'll talk a little bit about philosophical lineages, or relationship to the history of philosophy. I will take a few. I'll talk a few minutes about the founders and mention some of their writings. Then I will talk about the main method of the diamond approach, which is called inquiry. When we have time, I will talk a little about the transcending prospects or preview of where the diamond approach can lead. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions and respond to any comments. There is some link between the diamond approach and the Socratic-Platonic tradition. In this dialogue of Plato called Phaedrus, Socrates and Phaedrus are walking outside the city limits. And at the beginning of the dialogue, Socrates is saying to Phaedrus the following important thing. I am still unable, as the Delphic inscription orders, to know myself. And it really seems to me ridiculous to look into other things before I have understood that. That means before I have come to know myself. So the diamond approach, in short, assists in answering who or what am I. As a rough orientation, I can say the diamond approach is an epistemology of knowing yourself, or a hermeneutics of understanding yourself. Maybe the best way to characterize it is the diamond approach is a phenomenology of the self by the self. So what do we learn in the diamond approach? We are learning the following. The soul, or the psychic, our psyche, is learning experience without labeling, discrimination without abstraction, perception without conceptualization, even consciousness without content. So those 4 lines are a nice summary of what the diamond approach is all about. About the soul's learning. Or if you don't like the word soul, you can replace it with psyche. So this is a nice summary. It's taken from the magnum opus, I can say, of the founder Almaas. The book is called The Inner Journey Home. Amit Ali is the founder, or the main founder, of the diamond approach. He goes by the pen name of A.H. Almaas. He grew up in Kuwait and came to the University of California, Berkeley in 1963 to study physics and mathematics. And the longer he stayed in the San Francisco Bay Area, he became more and more interested in spiritual work. And in 1976, he founded his own school, which is called the Ridwan School for Spiritual Development. Karen Johnson is his main co-worker. a co-founder of the Diamond Approach. She's a psychologist and an artist. Next, please. Now I mention a few books. The Unfolding Now is a very good introductory book, very practical, teaching and focusing on the main method, inquiry. Next, please. The Luminous Night's Journey is an autobiographical fragment of Almaas. One of the books which were published very recently, Runaway Realization, with an interesting subtitle apropos to the essence of the Diamond Approach, Living a Life of Ceaseless Discovery. I mentioned this book already from one of the citations. This is the magnum opus in terms of thoroughness, has over 700 pages. The Inner Journey Home, with the subtitle Soul's Realization of the Unity of Reality. One of the most recent publications, and so far the shortest, less than 200 pages, The Alchemy of Freedom, The Philosopher's Stone and the Secrets of Existence. I mean, it's, or Almaas books have been translated into several languages, several European languages, and also into Chinese. There are two publishers, one in mainland China has translated his books into simplified Chinese character, and another publisher in Taiwan published in the traditional complex characters. There's a bilingual English and French publication and a collection of his works. Now a few words about the main method of the Diamond Approach, called inquiry. I start with a quote from one of his publications called Brilliancy. Inquiry into experience in a way that allows the truth of that experience to reveal itself. Speaking of family resemblance in the tradition of philosophy, in addition to having similarities to Socratic-Platonic philosophy, there's also a strong connection to phenomenology. So instead of having emphasis on conceptual analysis or philosophical theory, it follows the phenomenological maxim, to the things themselves. And what are the things themselves in the Diamond Approach? Direct, palpable, concrete experience. A Diamond Approach is a method for self-exploration that does not interfere, it does not manipulate our own direct experience. Here's a quote: "To let that, what shows itself, be seen from itself, in the very way in which it shows itself from itself." This is, of course, not a quote from Almaas. It is from Martin Heidegger, from his book Being in Time, where he tries to define what he understands by phenomenology. And that quote can be applied to the Diamond Approach. Of course, the Diamond Approach has not been developed out of any existing philosophy, just similarities with one or another existing philosophy. Here you see a parallel to phenomenology. In line with phenomenology, the main focus of the diamond approach is understanding, or better said, befriending your direct experience. And the main focus is on your immediate experience, not your experience from your past, not experience what you project into the future, what you imagine the future to be. It's on the focus on the here and now. By understanding, the diamond approach has a particular twist on what understanding is. Understanding is understood as a felt experience, a tasted, touched knowledge with a direct discrimination of different patterns, flavors, and textures. In the diamond approach, students learn to explore various aspects of their experiences. I just mentioned a few of them. Compassion, intelligence, will, truth, joy, peace, vulnerability, space. By space, I mean inner space, presence, and identity. Next, please. Those aspects are explored on different dimensions or levels. They are explored on the ego personality level, maybe on a higher level of the soul or the psyche, and even more expanding on the transpersonal or the so-called diamond level. And on the transpersonal or diamond level, any of those aspects I just mentioned are arising in full clarity, precision, and indestructibility. You will notice that these characterizations of clarity, precision, indestructibility are qualities that we associate with diamonds. And that is the reason why this particular approach was named the diamond approach to spiritual development. The inquiry, the main method of the diamond approach, is a self-exploration in an intimate and curious way. Not in an abstract way, in an intimate way. And you are encouraged to be really curious about your own experience. To make it a little bit more concrete, I just give 3 small examples of what the self-questioning and exploration can be all about. Becoming aware at any moment of what you are actually experiencing. Asking yourself, what is making this happen? Perhaps followed by the question, what is making me feel that way? This is just one of many questions you can pose to yourself. Next slide. A few words on the focal points of the method. Your relationship to being real, bringing awareness to where you are, recognizing your own meddling. It means recognizing your own attempts to manipulate your own experience. Another point of inquiry is exploring your own vulnerability, seeing whether you can admit to being vulnerable and what is this vulnerability all about. Identifying self-hatred, or how do you deal with superego attacks? In the diamond approach, the superego is not denied, it exists, but it is seen through. Next slide. Additional focal points. We are recognizing learned ignorance and direct knowing. Also observing what enhances or limits the immediacy of our experience. Another focal point is the influence of future thinking on your experience. We're considering our own lifeline and discovering how you value present experience. So how can we characterize the diamond approach in additional ways? I can say the diamond approach is a kind of proto, philosophy, which really becomes before philosophizing. It gets you ready. It can be viewed as a foundational knowingness. And I see it as a contemporary gnosis. The diamond approach has the meiotic method. So it is indeed the philosophical midwifery, but instead of delivering a child, I can say in the diamond approach, you are delivering yourself, or you're bringing your soul to birth. As I mentioned before, to the things themselves. The diamond approach is following these phenomenological tenet. Focus on the primacy of direct experience and befriending our own experience, cultivating and even enjoying immediacy. The diamond approach is not a philosophy, not a philosophical system or a psychological theory. What is particularly intriguing and characteristic is in the diamond approach, we are learning to undo things which we have taken on unnecessarily so. And we are seeing through cultural imprints or habits, cultural or individual habits, and are dealing with a superego by acknowledging its existence, but seeing through what the superego is doing. So a lot of what the diamond approach and its techniques is doing is an undoing. Therefore, I called it here de-reification of abstractions in favor of unique concreteness. We, in our culture, particularly Western culture, have the tendency to turn people, other people, ourselves, other living creatures, and activities into things, and thereby really abstracting from the rich concreteness of events and being. So in the diamond approach, we are undoing this pervasive re, re this pervasive reification of our activities. Loving truth for its own sake, that's a very important characteristic. And very important also, particularly for Western culture, which is very stressful at times, in the professions as well in interpersonal relationships. Learning to relax into being. That means, in this case, being yourself. And in this way, combining the most universal being and the most unique, namely yourself. This way we can realize what we can call omnicentric holism. We experience ourselves as a part of the whole, let's say the whole being the human family. But in a way that we realize that we, in our individuality, are also reflecting the whole. We are realizing and living a hologram, so to speak. And when realizing ourselves as part of a hologram which reflects the entirety, the whole, we have, of course, a non-hierarchical view of the world. That's a very important characteristic. The diamond approach is non-hierarchical. Now I want to say a few words about the transcendent outlook of the diamond approach, where diamond can go beyond regular self-improvement. Almaas talks in one of his latest books about the 4 turnings of psycho-spiritual development. And the first turning is the typical individual self-development, realizing our own individual potential. The second turning is characterized by individuals experiencing formlessness, such as unity, oneness, and non-duality. And these realizations are integrated into daily life. As the psycho-spiritual journey is experienced as a progressive ascent or progressive or descent, going up and down with an upward trajectory. The turnings 3 and 4 are of a very different nature. There we go beyond typical everyday experience. In the third turning, a parallel or alternate universe is present that is altogether different from the ordinary way of living of almost all people. Phase 3 is the inexhaustible source of phase 4 manifestations. So what do we have in phase 4, or the 4th turning? In the 4th turning, different kinds of realization arise. from the actualization of freedom as one of the manifestations of wisdom. This alternate reality is neither boundless nor not boundless. There is not anyone who wants anything, radical or pure simplicity. So in summary, we can say that the diamond approach is an experiential phenomenology of the self and by the self, and not through abstract thinking or conceptualization. And I think you have seen how different the diamond approach is with particularly academic philosophy, which puts a lot of emphasis on abstract thinking and conceptualization. This is the website. It may be hard to reach, to read. In short, it is diamondapproach.org. Yeah, I want to close with another quote by Almaas. In reality, the inquiry of the individual is nothing but the way that true nature is revealing itself. And we can read it also the other way around. Just as, can you go back to that slide? Karina, yeah. We can read it as true nature is revealing itself by the inquiry of the individual. Next slide. Now I'm glad to answer any questions or respond to comments you may have.
I have a question, Jörn.
Okay.
When do people get together and meet and practice these kind of phenomenological techniques, and what do they consist of? Like if one was to engage with the diamond approach aside from reading a book, what would they encounter?
Well, the inquiry as a main method of the diamond approach can be done in very different ways. You can do it, just by yourself, by journal writing or not even writing. The when we meet in the Ridwan school, one of the exercises can consist in doing the inquiry in pairs. It can also be done in smaller groups where one person is doing inquiry about a particular topic that is, of interest to the person, him or herself, and the other ones don't interfere. They are silent witnesses to the process. And maybe at the end of a process, they may ask some simple questions, but they don't judge anything what the person who's doing the inquiry is saying. Then there are other methods. For instance, having a like a monologue, and again, other people are just silent witnesses and may ask the question afterwards, but they're not evaluating anything, they're not criticizing, they're asking questions that can lead deeper into the inquiry of the person who is doing the inquiry. Yeah, but the book learning is just a preparatory step to get the comprehension of the entire approach, what the approach is about. It is not about learning anything theoretical. As I mentioned in my presentation, it is the main focus is understanding or befriending your own experience, and also not being too judgmental about it, but being interested in the concreteness of it and really being intimate with your own experience.
Okay, there is a question from Kate Ham, I think. Are there demonstration videos online where we can see an example of the technique?
I don't know any particular example of the technique that has been filmed. I think the good reason for it is that in inquiry you explore, very personal issues, and if you really want to do an authentic inquiry, you don't want to do it in front of people you don't know. You do it in front of people who have pledged not to divulge any information from somebody else who is doing an inquiry. But I mentioned the book, The Unfolding Now, which is perhaps the best introduction into the inquiry method. It's very easy to read, and you may be surprised how clear and easy it is compared to academic philosophy, which we have been bombarded with maybe in our education. I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you.
So, maybe I can say a little bit more. Sometimes in the lectures of Almaas, he is giving hints and concrete examples, or makes up possible examples. So on the website I mentioned, diamondapproach.org, there are several videos. You can see several videos of Almaas there, and he addresses those questions, and you get a much better feel for what the method is.
Anastasia Avdieva asked, could you send the link here, please? We already sent the link to diamondapproach.com in the chat.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. Or you can also look on the internet for A.H. Almaas. You will find connections there. And I want to mention most practitioners of the diamond approach are in North America and in Central and Western Europe. And I've heard recently that the diamond approach teaching will also become available in Eastern Europe very shortly. And if you have a question about that, you could write to the contact information given at the diamondapproach.org website, and somebody will reply and give you more details about it.
I have one question. Have you any problem with the participants when people every time want to get a result, some concrete, some not some people don't want to go through the long path during the therapy, and they just want to the short-term meetings and fast result. Have you any problem with this?
No, we can make a a start of our self-exploration at any time, any place, and it should only be as long as we are, comfortable with doing the inquiry. It can be very much in depth. It can last only a minute, and so the self-exploration, either when you do it yourself or you're doing with a partner or in a very small group, does not commit you to years of doing it, but it is also fun, because I have surprised really myself, what came up, what I learned about myself in the inquiry process. So because it is so much fun and so much surprise, you develop a taste for this inquiry process, which you like to continue. Nobody has to drag you there. You like to do it. It is a wonderful exploration of something which is closest to you, namely your own direct experience. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, holy. Right. The idea of undoing was very interesting. Thanks for this lecture, Jörn. It is always fascinating to learn new perspective.
Thanks for the comment. Yeah, the the undoing is very important for, especially maybe Western cultures. We are putting so much worth on doing and achieving and taking on concepts, especially in philosophy, and believing that the concepts are actually representing the essence of things, whereas by the abstraction we are looking away from the rich concreteness of individual things and experiences. So this undoing, this peeling away of layers which we have put on our experience, is a very very intriguing process. It's almost like an archaeological process in our own psyche, in our own soul, peeling away artificial layers which we have encapsulated our soul with. People who have listened to my presentation or who have read any books by Hamid may see parallels to many world religions, especially the inner core of world religions, which are called as gnosis. That's a term which is known in the Western world. That's what it actually is. It is intimate knowing yourself, which you have in many spiritual traditions. They are falling under different names, but it is mostly the inner tradition of each of the world religions. It is not. The similarity is not on the level of ritual or of creed, of confessing what to believe, but the intimate methodology of coming to know your soul or psyche. That's what it's all about. And then we can, of course, philosophize about everything, but the focus is on inner exploration. Well, if there are no more questions, then we may close here. And I just want to say that I wish we could meet in person. It would be much more fun, much more interesting. Of course, to have the presentation and conversations and exchanges in person. I hope we'll have a conference in Russia someday soon where we can meet in person. So I'm personally, missing that aspect of our conference.
Thank you for this lecture. It was a pleasure for us.
And thank you, Karina, for being so much help on the technical side. Thank you very much to everybody.